This is the story of this poor woman. These friends came to this place from out of town to have fun during their vacation. But as easily as they entered this place, they could not leave easily. Hello, my beloved family. Peace be upon you. Today, I have brought to you the most popular movie called Landmine Goes Click, which was released in 2015. Let's go to the movie without wasting time, and don't forget to like my video. Yes, the movie starts in Georgia with a truck driving up a hill. Inside, 3 people are going for a hike. Chris, and a couple named Daniel and Alicia. Daniel gets out of the truck first to look at their campsite. Then, Chris whispers to Alicia about telling others about their relationship. Alicia regretfully doesn't want to get married to Daniel on Saturday. The fact that they are sleeping together and cheating on Daniel behind his back is their secret. After Daniel instructs them to begin walking, the two follow him and start their hike. They discuss the peak, which was once a battleground. As they walk, they mention how soldiers left many landmines underground during the conflict. They kindle a bonfire in the center to start their night as the stars appear in the darkness. Chris declares Daniel and Alicia husband and wife. Just as they are ready to head to their tent, the couple enters their rental with joy and intoxication. Daniel begins to slowly undress as he approaches Alicia and plants a kiss on her top. Alicia tells Daniel to close the tent because Chris can see them from outside. Chris is watching them and getting upset. Daniel and Alicia keep being close while Chris puts out the fire. The sun begins to rise, and Chris wakes up from a deep sleep in his tent. He sees a man hanging around Daniel and Alicia. He gets up slowly and walks to the man. They start to argue, and Chris gets into a fight with the stranger. Chris had no idea that the stranger was Debbie, Daniel's buddy and a first responder for trekking, until Alicia and Daniel arrive from a distance. Chris apologizes for what he did, and their tension begins to lessen. Debbie returns to the rear and grabs Alicia's camera. He promises to take a photograph of the 3 of them, and they all agree and pose for it. Because of the angle, Debbie tells them to make little adjustments. He wants them to move to the left where the view is really nice, until the unexpected happens. Chris steps on a landmine. Debbie begins to pause and tells him not to move at all. Daniel and Alicia start to feel scared because they don't know what to do. But Debbie says that he will get some help from the town, though it will take 4 hours. When they ask him how long it will be, he begins to walk away. Daniel yells at him to leave. Alicia and Daniel move to the back of a large rock as the 3 of them experience a panic episode. They talk about how to keep Chris around and not abandon him. After hoping for a signal, Daniel's phone begins to ring. He then starts talking to the operator on the other end of the line about what they need: a helicopter and landmine specialists. As he prepares to hang up, he promises to inform Alicia that they are not saving thieves. Alicia is taken aback and unable to understand Daniel's words. His temper then erupts, and he returns to Chris and confronts them both. Alicia had no idea that Chris had told Daniel everything. They both apologize to him, but it's too late because they discover that Daniel had planned it all along. The call is phony because there is no signal, and he is so angry at them both that he refuses to accept their apologies. He begins to gather his belongings before leaving them as well. He walks to a place far from where Debbie went and tells him to go have some beer and see some dancers. Meanwhile, they are working on a plan together when a strange man from the area approaches them. They ask him to help them dig the ground. Ilya, the man, and his dog arrive. Ilya panics and hurries to them. They tell him what's going on, and in a desperate attempt to get his assistance, Ilya asks Alicia why she is with Chris, who is not her husband. Ilya consents to assist them, but demands payment. Both of them warn him that they can only offer him what they have in return. When he tries to have an intimate moment with Alicia alone after receiving Ilya's okay, he begins searching through their belongings, locating Alicia's underwear and giving it to his dog to sniff. He claims that he needs Alicia's underwear, the one she is wearing right now, in order to assist. Chris is now angry, but since their lives are in jeopardy, he has no other option. Chris tells Ilya that he has $380 and a credit card with him. Ilya agrees to take both options, but says he doesn't want American money. What he really wants are her pants instead. Alicia says yes and starts to go to her tent. On her way, Ilya stops her and tells her she has to take off her clothes in front of him. At first, she is unsure, but then she does what he asks. When she is holding her underwear, she hands it to Ilya, and he takes it politely, smelling it as if it's brand new. Now that Ilya has what he wanted, he helps them by digging. He asks Alicia exactly what she wants him to do. Alicia tells him it needs to be 2 feet away and deep enough for Chris to jump into. As Ilya is digging, his bag rings with a radio. Chris and Alicia want him to call for assistance right away since they feel a little hopeful. "The soup is done," he says to a friend named Sergey as he goes to his bag. But he's inside assisting the 2 stranded Americans. Alicia is frantic to call on the radio, but Chris gets frustrated and occasionally swears at Ilya, which offends him. If they choose not to, he threatens not to assist them. Alicia asks Ilya to lend her the radio, but he always wants something back. She feels upset and frustrated. She says that Chris is in trouble and doesn't have time to play games. He is about to borrow his radio when he tosses Alicia's underwear and asks her to get it for him. Alicia is really angry but has no other option. Ilya asks her to act like a dog and crawl on the ground. It's awful and upsetting for her, but she still chooses to go after him. She gently gets on her knee, lies down, and moves like a dog. She takes it as she is about to head to the location of the underwear and begins to crawl over to Ilya. He tosses it once more, but this time he claims that no dog is holding anything. Rather, he would like her to do it with her mouth. Once more, Alicia locates the underwear, bites into it, snatches it, and carries it over to Ilya. Alicia speaks into Ilya's radio, now that he's let them use it, but the other person doesn't speak English. Ilya is happy to help with translation when she asks him to, but as usual, he demands something in exchange. Chris and Alicia feel annoyed and frustrated, but they think the best idea is to follow Ilya since he understands the language and knows where they are. Now, he is asking them to play a game. Alicia will take off her clothes each time he translates a word. Alicia is unhappy and won't do it. She tells him to go away and says they don't need his help anymore. She grabs the shovel and begins digging alone, but Ilya approaches her and informs her that the friend on the other end of the telephone, Sergey, is concerned about Ilya. He makes Ilya answer the phone and informs Sergey that he is okay. While she is digging, Ilya is unable to express her worry because Sergey does not speak English. Ilya has to strip to let Sergey know she's okay. Now that she has total reign over them, Ilya begins speaking in Georgian and discussing the topic with Sergey on the radio. Conversely, Ilya takes off her clothes. However, the game ends when Chris orders Ilya to stop. Ilya becomes mad, picks up his stuff, and leaves. Ilya informs them, however, that Sergey is still discussing the soup with him. Ilya no longer cares for him and is furious. Ilya reaches for his shotgun and begins pointing it at them. Ilya begins to flee as Chris is frantically talking with her. Ilya orders his dog to follow him. When they outsmart him in a fit of rage, he declares that Chris will pay for his actions. He drops the shotgun and goes after Ilya and his dog. Chris desperately looks for a chance to seize the shotgun. He plans how to retrieve the gun and manages to seize it, demonstrating it to Ilya, who is currently keeping her hostage. Ilya is holding a knife. Chris and Ilya begin arguing and cursing one another, and Ilya becomes so angry and insane that he begins to harm Alicia. Chris may have shot Alicia, so he is unable to pull the trigger. Ilya gently moves away from Chris and disappears behind a boulder as he takes advantage of the circumstance. She is coerced into joining him. Ilya begins to lie down in front of Alicia, face down on the rock, and slowly but firmly undresses her bra and pants. Because she has no control over the situation, as Ilya begins to assault her repeatedly, Alicia lets out a heartbreaking howl of pain and disdain. From a distance, Chris sees the person he loves being attacked by a local man who is acting wildly and violently. He is holding a gun, but he can't use it. When Ilya feels tired, Alicia starts acting wildly, which makes him even angrier. Ilya feels dizzy because Alicia hits him on the head with a rock. When Chris yells for Alicia to come over, he is about to shoot, but then the dog runs after him and bites him. He faints when he hits the ground. He is sleepy and partly asleep when Ilya tells him that the landmine is fake. Everything is a setup, and they won't die from it. Chris finds himself lying down next to Alicia, who is battling for her life with numerous slashes on her neck and a lot of blood all over her body. While Ilya begins to leave them, Chris is yelling for assistance, but nobody appears to be listening. It's there in his arms. Alicia is dying. As time goes on, a family with a small daughter named Leah lives in the suburbs of Georgia. She and her mother are doing housework together, and she is talking to her about something when a young American tourist knocks on their door. He is disoriented and unsure of what to do. He asks for assistance. The GPS in his car died a while ago, so he asks for directions. He is unable to comprehend Tanya, the mother, when she explains how to return to the city. He asks them, hoping they have an old map he can buy. Tanya says they don't have a map, but being friendly, Leah offers to print one from their computer for him, which lets him come into their house. The man who is lost is Chris. When Leah gives Chris the map, he asks them if there is a restaurant close by because he feels hungry. They don't have one, Tanya explains, so she invites him to join them for dinner. Chris accepts it with pleasure and strikes up a conversation with them like a tourist. On the far side of their house is a bee farm where Ilya works. His dog keeps barking at the house, which makes him curious. When he goes outside for this reason, he instantly leaves his current task and heads to their house. He sees an odd boot from their doorstep as he enters. To his astonishment, Chris is the one conversing and dining with his family, and he becomes extremely anxious and terrified. Ilya is furious and takes his shotgun out into the foyer. Chris pursues him and informs him that although his rifle is unloaded, he is aware of this. Ilya's legs get shot by Chris. After that, Tanya and Lika venture outside to observe the situation. They respectfully ask Chris what they can do, but they are afraid. Chris requests that Leah move her father into a room while tying her mother. Chris wants Ilya to tell them everything, including what he did to Alicia and his games. Even though Ilya and Tanya are begging him and sobbing in desperation, all he claims is that he was intoxicated when he did it. To prove that he is acting intoxicated, Chris takes some vodka from their kitchen. Chris is furious and begins to pull the trigger after rejecting Ilya's justification and apology. The bullet was on his side, as the tension increased, and he unintentionally shot Leah in the head, killing her. As Chris stares down at the lifeless Leah, he is startled and afraid. Chris is shown in the film struggling to suppress his terror, while also feeling guilty and ashamed of what he has done. In return for his life, he murders a young girl. The movie ends here. Please, my family, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.